Tom, do you need the two-pager? It's right here.
I've got that one, let me have, I have a 5-pager, but I will.
I've got it here. Yeah.
I'll go up with
So
this.
you're expecting another person?
I think that,
I don't know, I
Make sure
just
that's
keep
all
seeing more and
5
more
pages.
people showing up.
Here's a, I have one.
Yes.
Your team.
Yes, I'm expecting at least one, if not.
That would be Dante?
Dante, and
I'll do it over here.
there might be a third as well.
Okay.
I came from Wheaton, so I wasn't coming too far. So he's coming in from
I'm going to start making a list of all
Racine and
our
Austin, so
messages.
traffic could be.
I'll go to the website and see what if there's even listed out here, which there are, but I think they're a little dated. Then I noticed the list of officers. I think this is pretty dated. right? This is on our current website. It's like 2 years old, the officers.
that's not true.
No.
I mean, there are some things on the website that we update regularly.
Camille,
Yes,
excuse me, did you look at the website, the YouTube thing I put on?
yes, just a little bit.
Briefly, yeah,
Briefly?
29 minutes of,
Some easier to hear than others.
You know that- did you hear?
I just started, I haven't
Sorry.
finished.
it was about 12 hits. I couldn't believe it.
Wow,
Who in the world?
well, there you go.
12 hits. Well, what was the title?
Renewing Redeemed.
Well.
Huh,
I couldn't believe it. First time I looked, there was one hit. That'll probably be.
This is something you did a few months ago.
No, our last meeting, I recorded the whole thing, put it on YouTube.
The first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that. What do they call it when it disappears?
I'll look for it.
Well, you probably,
lost in the clouds.
unless you're,
Richard Nixon.
well, are you recording again? Are you recording again?
Maybe.
Emails,
Right.
I don't know, they all just disappear.
Now we have to be careful what we say.
Yeah,
How much memory does your camera have? Would it be more than 30 minutes?
It's 3 hours, believe it or not.
wow.
But what makes me mad is I didn't get pictures of all these people. So we would at least have that.
To keep it straight,
Do you remember what the first one even looked like?
it was a two people,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, man with the beard
Man
and the.
younger guy,
Here,
younger woman.
here.
I can remember faces more than what they said, or their names, but
Okay, who's taking pretty good notes?
oh,
Of the
fabulous.
kind of walk around conversation. So you can always, no, seriously,
I know,
you can use that to refresh.
The queen of the notes.
Oh,
I've
goodness.
never seen nicer notes. So complete. I think I wrote them.
That's why I recorded it, but you weren't there.
Oh,
That's why I recorded
Unfortunately, there probably wasn't a lot to know
it. There was no argument.
in that 30. In fact, within 5 minutes, we had gotten to the point that, ooh, the date was wrong, and so probably it's a busted meeting, we'll probably just adjourn. And then some
switch gears.
stupid number, I will incriminate myself. Said, well, since we're here,
Yeah,
can we just talk for 2 minutes?
we met for.
Talk for 2 minutes on a comment that Pastor
90
Kenny
minutes.
made the week later, and 90 minutes later,
We
we
did meet for 9.
almost kind of had to force ourselves to end.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I don't know who called the end of the meeting, but it was a warning that,
Yeah.
you know, in 1 minute, we have to stop.
I forget, somebody declared that meetings shouldn't run longer than
Hello, Connie.
90 minutes or 2 hours, and they become counted
I-
non-production, so just like that, shut down.
You know, no one disagreed.
Here at the end,
I'm Mark.
remind me to put these away.
I'm Jennifer.
Sunday school,
Nice to meet you.
office,
You know, it's funny how Mark, no one
but they
disagreed.
open.
You did pretty good.
Do you
Well, I
have
went and questioned, where did they come from?
Tom's the
I
other
don't know,
one.
it's-
and the main door?
Yeah, that's all I want, go on and on.
I know, all I have is G.
I have the,
Reading glasses,
Did you
he
go to
is,
Charleston?
no.
Charleston.
So I picked up this
Were you going to
portfolio
Charleston?
today, go
Yes.
get some copies and
When?
something. And then
Last
put this
week.
folder
We
in.
went last week.
And then I
Last
realized
week.
that I
Monday to
come
Friday.
through with all my regular
I was
stuff.
delayed on the
And
Southwest.
then Glasses, reading.
There.
I didn't do well at right, so
This
we didn't have
folder
radio.
is.
Oh, I did.
Hey, Bill.
Three slots there.
Oh my goodness. I guess some repairs.
We might need,
I'll pay on the corner.
I know there's no more coming from our side, I apologize for being late. I'll tell you, a few accidents too many, I mean.
Let's see, is Dick coming? Does anybody know?
Dick,
No. Yes, Dick. Anybody else?
Is Pastor coming?
Oh, Pastor.
No, I don't actually, hopefully I'll.
Is that you or Tom?
Just an unattended day.
That's not a gavel.
that is a knuckle.
Ralph, upon reviewing his video, decided
A
that,
reflex tester for the knees or something, we don't know.
yeah.
Really?
I'll introduce myself, I'm Tom.
Hi, Dante, down there. Nice to meet you. No,
We went to see the American English on Friday.
I don't know, we'll see. It shouldn't be. I guess it's been going.
No, it was sunny, but it was muggy. It was pretty warm.
Yeah, I didn't want
It's a nice venue, but it's, have you ever been there?
Which one?
At COD?
No. I've been to see.
I don't know how many, I mean, there were, so there's, it's outside of a big building, but it sits by the lake, and it's kind of a permanent little, stage. Come and see. And then the lawn kind of goes up like this, which is great, and that seats a fair number of people. But once that's filled, then there's kind of a walkway around that part, and then there's
Who was that?
board grass behind that, but it kind of dips first.
Because I need a remedial.
And then it comes up, so a good many of the people in that upper part couldn't see over the crest unless you stood up. And so, which is fine for us, since we've seen it many times. So the music was fine, but
I ended up having an easy,
if you actually wanted to see, apparently they get big crowds, and they say, if you want to ensure that you get down in the part where you can for sure see, you might have to show up at like 5 p.m. Like, I'm not sure any concerts were the.
Well, time is fugitive, ladies and gentlemen. Let's sally forth here. Dante, introduce your
Sure.
group here.
I'm Dante Dominella from Dominella Architects, Bill Hutchinson, and Xander Jacobs, all from.
And Don, you want to just go around, we'll go around the table?
Yeah, Tom Mackowski.
Jennifer Moore.
Mark Dinsmayer.
Tom Wilson.
Al Coleman.
Connie Bolton.
Neil Barber. Art Gustafson.
Art Gustafson.
And there are several others on our committee who are not here.
Okay,
But who are
okay.
Dante, you want to give us 5 minutes on your firm?
So I thought I had 15, but I can do it in 5.
Okay, let's go with 10.
All right, that's fine. So Tom, we did a very abbreviated sort of version of our presentation here. Just so you can all kind of see it, if you have any questions as we go along. We'll just tell you a little bit about us, what we do, who we are. Can you guys see all right? It's, sometimes it's better if we project, but again, this works for groups when everybody's all right here. So introduction of ourselves. We're the people who will be working on your project. We're the people responsible for the project. And you will be able to contact certainly me at any point on this project. I will be working on it from time to time. Bill will be managing it, and Xander will be our coordinator on your project. So throughout the process, any one of the three of us will be available and ready to assist you with any questions, comments, issues, concerns you might have as you go through the process. We also have other support at the office. Ye is there. She works more on the BIM side, on the drafting side, and digital area. So there's adequate support to get the project to the state you need when you need it.
BIM is the new CAD.
Yes, so building information modeling, all our projects are utilize BIM. We use Revit in the office. There's a variety of others, but that's an Autodesk product which dovetails well into our other Autodesk products. So skills and talents, we have both the left and the right side brain sort of covered with information. So we're a creative group, but we're sensible. We do what makes sense and what's common sense and really what the parish is looking to have. And then, why choose us? And as Bill just mentioned, we are completely BIM. Our expertise and our interests, we do probably 95% of our work is religious related. Right now, we're just finishing a job up at President's Resurrection Medical Center, so we work with the presidents. We're doing their chapel. I don't know if some of you may not have heard it, burned down about 2 years ago. So right at Talcott Harlem in their facility. So we work with big, large corporate entities. We also work with smaller communities and committees identical to yours, really almost on every project level. Expertise across the board, if there's new construction, renovations, additions, we do bell towers, we do statues, any number of liturgical items. We also do liturgical furnishings. I know that's not a big part, as Tom and I have talked about your project just briefly, but it's something that if you're considering, and certainly Bill's expertise as well is well known here in the parish.
He's referring to the fawn upstairs.
And then really it's design. We run the gamut really from anything from classical to contemporary. We integrate really integrate the liturgical elements with the building design. We start utilizing sketches and then move slowly, inputting it into the computer, and then slowly into BIM modeling to give you photorealistic images, certainly to help you with fundraising and other aspects of the project, and really just to explain it to lay people who really aren't comfortable or familiar in how to read an architectural drawings. And most of the work we produce at the end of the day is the two-dimensional drawings that contractors use, but it helps exponentially when you can have something that's 3D to give people an idea of how it relates to your facility and what it's doing. What are our project services? We pretty much, our standard is having, so our standard contract, if you will, is certainly the architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection. But we also integrate all these other aspects of your project that are frequently part of your particular project, or at least part of most projects. Certainly working in Hinsdale, right off the bat, you have your government, regulatory agencies. That's always a big one in all the communities across Chicagoland. Honestly, they're all about the same. We do work in Orland Park, we do work in Highland Park, we do, from top to bottom, all the municipalities are really challenging and opinionated. And Chicago's really at the top of the list, where we also do a lot of permitting. So, but things like your site work, your landscaping, ADA accessibility, utilities, fire protection, things like that. Yes.
Can I ask a question on that? Or?
Oh, you right.
So I see lead on there.
Yes.
And I vaguely have some familiarity with that. So without going off on any kind of a tangent, in a project like ours, which would be more towards renovation than any new construction or anything like that, is there anything from a lead or a lead certificate, not necessarily lead certification for certification's sake, so much as are there lead aspects that you all have found that you begin to introduce into church settings?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there like one example, one for instance?
So we are able to do LEED certified projects. It depends on the values and goals of the parish. So in general, what we do is we automatically, our philosophy on that, on LEED specifically, is that we incorporate any economic or energy efficient, either design or equipment into the project automatically, as long as it doesn't cost the owner a premium to do so. Anything that costs a premium to do so, we can bring it into dialogue at the committee level and say, if this is something you're interested in, these are the costs associated with it. So if there's anything with rainwater harvesting or low water usage fixtures or pervious paving, we can do that. We will incorporate that, we will discuss that. But at the same time, if there's a premium, we'll also usually bring that to the table. And you'll be able to make that evaluation for yourself as a parish and say, that's worth it or that's not worth it. But things like motion sensors, energy efficient light fixtures, economizers on rooftop units, all that really goes in automatically without you having to ask.
Good question.
Good answer.
So we have, again, it's sort of our repeat clients, and it's really, we've built up a core group of relationships in the field, in the industry, that we can call upon at any time as a question arises on your project to either assist us or give us additional insight or expertise on a particular aspect. So, for example, fundraising consultants, oftentimes they want to do a sell page, they sometimes call it a sell page. I don't know if you've started that process yet or if you're in the fundraising mode. They want to see something early on that kind of gives people some idea of what you're doing, generates excitement about the project. Or say a specialty consultant, maybe there's stained glass involved in the project, maybe there's some statuary, or maybe there's an outdoor prayer space or something like that that you have an interest in or somebody would like to donate. We can begin to incorporate that and those artisans who actually do that. We've done a lot of statuary. We're working on 2 or 3 right now that have been commissioned, and so we're helping them do the landscaping around them in the exterior space. So, and there are others like that. And certainly general contractors, so who's going to build your project, when is it going to be done, and for what price, we can certainly bring in your general contractor. And then just real quickly, we'll go through the religious portfolios and really how we approach each project. So really this has all been modeling. So this is a new church project that we're working on. It's all created, all completed very early on to help people, both the committees understand what the project is they're doing and how they're doing it, but also to let our consultants know, well, how does the structure work on this? How do I get the mechanical in there? So we can start to formulate some early ideas about cost and pricing. Secondly then, what is the cost and can you design within a budget? This was a church out in Carroll Stream that had an extremely low budget. We actually inherited it from another architect who was about $800,000 over budget. We came in, gave them the same program and same amount of seats in the church for what their budget was originally. So it was through efficient use of, in this particular case, it was building material selection and then structural we transfer the load of the entire existing church onto our new addition in a very efficient and economical means. And we incorporated old stained glass windows in this. They came out of a church down in Joliet that was being demolished. So we had Conrad Schmidt Studios, which is a studio up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, liturgical studio. We also do a lot of work with the Prado Regali, so I'm sure, I don't know if those, in the liturgical industry, those are recognizable names. And then really design is an important part. We don't lose sight of design at any phase of the job. Again, as we said, we work very diligently we did a restoration, a period restoration of the 1923 Errol Briermeyer Church, which was a very Italian Romanesque church. So we actually finished the church from drawings and details that we had found in some of his original documents. It had, over the years, it was kind of interesting. You would go inside the church and you could just walk through 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, so on and so forth. So just as time moves on, and so we kind of went back, peeled everything off, and brought it back to a period restoration that really embodied what the building was and the spirit and the essence of the design, so that it really became somewhat of a timeless design. And then incorporating liturgical sacramental theology and liturgy. So, and I know yours isn't a big church project, but what we try and do at every aspect and juncture of the project is to say, what does this mean and how does this relate to theology and or what are we trying to do here if we're trying to teach religious education? How can we get kids to understand and learn better? So for example, at a religious education center, we did something as simple as impress images from the Bible into the sidewalk. So whale or seashells or things like that. So as the kids were going in, these images were presented to them in a subtle way. It sort of got them thinking about, hey, this is what we're doing, this is where I'm going, and this is really part of my world. And then we also did something maybe a little less, a little more advertising, but did a Gobi, which is a projector that was on the outside of the building that changed with the liturgical season. So it would project an image for the Lenten season, it would project an image for normal, ordinary time. And they could do that, again, just to kind of introduce and excite kids about coming into the facility. So really your project and how we handle projects and design from that. First and foremost, it's really the people, it's the ministries, it's trying to work with really your groups that you feel will be part of this project, or understanding all the aspects of that, but specifically honing in on whether it's young adults or the different ministries or music or any of those aspects of the church and where you would like to focus with. And it's also a presentation, and certainly, like I said, getting in front of fundraising and getting in front of groups and individual interest groups that have stakeholders that are interested in a particular aspect about the project, so that we can kind of communicate with them. And more importantly, really, for the committee, so that you guys have the information necessary to go back to the parish or community at large and say, these are these are the ideas we're thinking about, this is why we're thinking about it. So we start big picture, look at your site, look at all aspects of the site, look at vehicular, look at pedestrian, look at utilities. And then from there, we move into to kind of the buildings. What are the buildings? What age are the buildings? What do you want to accomplish with the buildings? I know ADA was a particular issue that had come up in our conversation. Potentially some renovation, and just other ideas that we can share with you to give you some insight and some ideas that you can start to ponder as you go through kind of your facility. Obviously, the budget's an important part, and then we break it up into kind of the key elements. So where are you spending your money, and what components are you spending your money on? So, there's often a lot of non-tangible costs that are associated with the project, or there are that need to be considered. There's also furniture and fixtures, the site, and then of course there's buildings. And that helps you, when you break down the budget, at least get a better feel for what the costs are, and if necessary where you can cut, and if necessary where you can add. And then lastly, we're with you through construction. So pretty much every step of the way, we're there with the city, with the permits, with zoning approval, and all the way to occupancy, and making sure that you're happy with the building. Your operation and manuals and everything else you understand how to use the building and operate the system. That's the abbreviated version.
Okay.
But that's all the important stuff.
Well done, that was
A copy.
10.5 minutes.
Well, Tom, you want to give them copies and take them through the concept that we're two-pager, and then
Yeah, will we be able to get a copy of that presentation, or?
We can. We generally hesitate. It just depends on what.
That's fine, if you all prefer, that doesn't, it's no bearing one way or the other, I just can't hurt to ask.
We don't do it in a way that is, we don't like to it's not that we're not sharing information, it's just that oftentimes, and having been through this drill many times, we're just not sure what stage of the review process you're at, and we just prefer to keep that information confidential. But the drawings, and generally, that doesn't continue throughout the process, and certainly with our contracts with most of the religious entities, our contracts are such that the drawings are ownership of the entity at any point. Yes.
I think, from my perspective, I like to have a hands-on something that shows me your process.
I
And what we
understand
listen to.
some of this could be sensitive, but if you can understand the committee sort of wants the framework of everything, you might be able to simplify that, or you might have other materials you could say, this might answer that question, just so that we sort of have that context.
So we have exactly that.
Good, that's perfect. So this is, all right, so
And that's
we'll start here, and then we'll just.
So we actually outline the process by which we go through and design.
Perfect,
And
that answers that.
and actually, that's electronic, and Tom has that version. So feel free to share that.
Well, it's Tom's fault.
Make sure enough.
I didn't know that.
Jenny's gonna- Okay, so what Tom wanted me to do is to explain how the committee started together and what we've been doing, and then also to share with you the brief that we've created for any outside resources, which includes architects. So the committee formed, gosh, a number of months ago, back in March? February. And the committee size, there were probably another 4 or 5 people who would be on the committee, and for the most part, I'd say 75–80% attend every meeting. We've had a number of meetings. So we spent a fair amount of time walking through the facility, talking about what we saw as issues, what we've heard. And we said the best thing we can do is to not have any judgment and not have any pet choices that we each would have. We'll collect some of the thoughts and ideas, but we'll also create a simple brief, one for architects, and then a little bit more detailed brief for the church council, and then ultimately it's sort of the roadmap for how we communicate with the congregation. So what I'm going to do is hand out, it's really 1.5 pages, and it is the simple brief that we'll walk through. And they're not stapled, so that's one copy. What was it, copy?
Oh, they're 2 pages.
Yeah, the 2 pages, and does anyone else need a copy? I have 2 more copies. No, we're okay? I'm going to put this right here for now, and I'll just work from this one. So, Redeemer is coming pretty close to our 100-year anniversary. And so, we've been thoughtful about what we might do as it relates to that, and the other factors, I think, leading us to consider a project. Our main building here was constructed in the late 1950s, and 30 years later, in the 1980s, was when we did our addition, because we really saw a shift in the purpose and use and needs of the church in the 80s, and we said, we've got to do something here to be current. And here we are about 30 years later. And frankly, that leads us to the goal, which is really to transform this facility now to serve our congregation and the community for the next generation. So we're thinking roughly every 30 years, it seems like we have to either repurpose or adjust. And it isn't just for the current needs, it really is to think through how we might be using the building and facilities for the congregation, the community, our ministries, and it's important that when we talk about our ministries, we really are positioning ourselves more as a welcoming community. And so it has literal meanings of accessibility, and it has welcoming in the sense of all types of people with all needs, and the ideas that we're serving in our ministries, a broader sense of collection of needs. So what we've done in terms of the last 3, 4, 5 months, we have looked at all the internal and external resources that have been using our facility in any way and asked for feedback. So we have some feedback. We have expert advisory services from the ELCA. So these are people who do nothing but buildings and facilities for churches in the ELCA.
That's who am I?
It is, yes, it is.
Just fine.
And so we have interviewed committees, our own committees, about what their needs are and wishes. And we've taken tours of other churches for ideas, perspectives, and for those who have actually done projects, we've actually had a chance to see some. And we've interviewed some of the external groups who use our facility. So there are some groups that actually go to large numbers who use the facility. A homeless Saturday evening into Sunday morning where we have 50 to 55 people every Saturday, or the Saturdays when our church services the community. And yes, it is the pets. And